Developer briefing 194 just dropped and there is a lot to go through. Micro stutters, the new reload speed of the Panther, the rework of the British weapons. So let's dive into it. But before I do, if you do enjoy my content, then please subscribe to the channel. And yes, developer briefing 194 just dropped. The British rework progress and developer interview wrap up. Have a sneak peek at the British rework progress and vote on which British medium tank you want to see introduced. Well, you know, come on, honestly, medium tank introduced, you know, the Matilda. You know, if it counts as a medium tank, right? Some people would argue it is a heavy tank, but the Matilda maybe. You could even introduce a light version of the Churchill tank, right? It's just the heavy tank with the lighter gun on it, right? It's like the Americans have the M4, which counts as a heavy tank, but it has the 75 gun on it. It's the same thing. But yeah, so there's gonna be a vote on which British medium tank you want to see introduced. And they write, hey everyone, if you haven't had the chance to read the Ask Me Anything last month or tune into the recent dev interview, we'll be summarizing both in this week's dev brief, as well as sharing a sneak peek at progress with the British Forces rework. But first we want to thank everyone who took part in the PTE this last weekend and joined us for a few games. Your feedback is much appreciated, and we'll now be looking at what we consider patch 14.3 as well as the future of development. So patch 14.3 PTE VPAC, micro stuttering. Over half of those who took part felt that there was an improvement with the stuttering, experiencing less micro stuttering. Okay, on most maps we are aware of some reports about FPS drops in a live game since the last patch, and we will continue to look into this. Ultra wide monitor compatibility. 3/4 of those using a ultra wide monitor felt that there were a marked improvements, and the experience was what most players would expect from similar titles. Then we have the Panther Tank. Over 3/4 of the players who used the Panther during the PTE felt that the reload speed was just right. And if they say 3/4 of the players, then how many was that? Was that 100 players? Was it just one server and 75 players said, yes, it is better? You know, numbers matter, right? Numbers matter in statistics. So how many players were that? British weapons. Although most players felt the improvements to the British weapons were better, some feedback suggested the gun sights were still too large, which they are, and further work to improve weapon zeroing was needed. Then we hop over to the practice range. We already have a list of work we'd like to carry out on for future iterations of the practice range, and much of this was also identified by players who took the time to submit feedback on their experience. There was also some great ideas that we will take a look at to see how we could implement these in future versions. Some of the feedback included increasing the shooting range to 500 meters, moving targets. Of course you want to have moving targets. You know what I mean? That's a given. More navigation and prompts, of course. This all seems so obvious to me. If you're running over an obstacle course and you need to go under a log, the game needs to tell you, hey, you need to press Ctrl to go under a log. Else it is absolutely useless. It is if you don't have that, the whole practice range is useless. Respawning of vehicles and helmets. Here's my suggestion, how to let loose dev team. Go buy and play squad and do their bootcamp and just copy it one-on-one. Because that is what you want to do. That is absolutely the way you want to go. Buy squad, go to the bootcamp and just copy it one-on-one. In my country we have a saying, it is better to steal a great idea than to think of a dumb idea. There you go. There's a great idea. Plans for optimization and bug fixing, having realized our focus needed to change so that we would revisit the existing game and bug database. The roadmap for Hell Let Loose has changed and we're working to put a new one together that will be able to talk more about a future briefing. Well, is it so hard to put a roadmap together? Really? It is that hard? It takes weeks literally to put the roadmap together? I guess it does. We go to rubber banding. Well, we have made changes to both the PC and console platforms to help reduce rubber banding. We know there is still more to be done. Okay. Voice over IP, we continue to work closely with Vivox to understand how to improve the quality and experience for the players. Make individual volume sliders. Each player needs to have their own slider so I can set their own volume. Their own volume. It's that simple, because asking or telling somebody, hey buddy, you're very loud, or hey buddy, you're very soft, is really annoying in game, right? And some people make your ear bleed and other people sound like they're in the toilet far in the distance. Give us all individual volume sliders. There you go. And then we're gonna go to the British Forces rework. Both during the AMA and in the dev interview, we outlined that we're doing the essentially make good on the British Forces, including new and more accurate weapons, uniforms and vehicles. How about introducing the African troops, or the Australians, or the Indian, right? They're all part of the British Forces. We all need them in the game. Historical accuracy. The brand absolutely should have a bipod for someone who has been shown how to use a brand gun by other historians. I can absolutely attest to a bipod. The brand needs a bipod. Matt, Studio Creative Director. So Matt, why doesn't it have one? Why doesn't it have one? Great that you're saying this. So why doesn't it have one, Matt, Studio Creative Director? I mean, really? Really? Weapons, brand gun. We are going to do a bipod for the brand, which will be publicly tested to understand the best balancing, whether it sits on the machine gun roll or whether it works for the automatic rifleman. British Thompson, we will be doing a 1928 A1 Thompson. SMLE, we will be doing an SMLE number 1 MK3 that was used throughout World War II, and number 32 scope with a number 4 MK as a new sniper rifle, the Sten MKV as a additional stand gun, and Gammon bomb, also known as the number 82 grenade. This will work as an explosive on impact device to help specific roles deal with lighter armored vehicles. There we go. And here we can see the new SMLE number 1. It looks great, right? And this is the number 1 from the other side. Armor. In terms of armor, we'll be going specific pieces of armor for the British, specifically for North Africa, and have a look at the armor that's available for drill, including the Churchill MK3, the Churchill MK, what is it, 6 for Europe, and the M3 Stuart Honey. We have options when it comes to introducing the new British medium tank for North Africa, and we want to give you the vote on what we work on implementing. Share your opinion and cast your vote, and the votes is the Crusader MK3, the Valentine MK2, or the Matilda. Well, the Matilda, as I already said, has my vote. The Churchill, it looks pretty good thus far. Uniforms. We will also be making good on uniforms for both North Africa and Western Europe, including shorts and short sleeves uniforms for the British, as well as the German DAK uniform. And well, let's take a look at these. Okay, they look like they should be looking, and here are the German ones. They all look really good. And then the new helmets as well. The Firefly tank improvements to maneuverability and how the Firefly works falls into a wider conversation around armor in the game, and it is something we want to look at. and the Recon and Artin re-evaluating the game meta is not off the table for us, and we're keen to explore what it could look like in the future, whether that be making artillery a commander ability that can be called in or a mortar team. My vote goes to the mortar team. The node system, with some players finding the node system to have become stale, we also want to look at revisiting and understanding where previously in Hell Let Loose the location of the node placement would have an impact. Creating a deeper mechanic is something we'll look to do and test out in the future PTE, where you'll be able to share your feedback on the direction taken. I vote for the old node system. The closer you put them towards the enemy, the more resources you get. It was a perfect system. It was not simply an engineer putting his nodes down and then the whole game just forgetting about them, right? And then just leeching XP off of them. Although I like to do this as well, the old node system was way better. And we should also go back. An engineer can make 4 sets of 3 nodes, because sometimes you play games and I am the only engineer who puts down his 3 nodes, and those are the only nodes in the game. And it used to be 4 sets of 3 nodes, not 3 sets of 3 nodes. We should just revert back to the old system. Why the old dev team just got rid of the old node system, I don't know. I always thought it was a good system and progression system and loadout reworks. We never want players to feel though they're not progressing in some form, and some of the new weapon system we're going to prototyping out will be touching on the idea of being able to use XP for other roles. We'll also want to look at new loadouts as well as revisiting existing ones, and we'll be doing a new set of loadouts for German forces for LLMN that would be different to their existing loadouts in the Western Europe. For example, those more accurate loadouts will need to be prototyped and eventually put in a PTE for players to feedback on. Tanks were a lot of variables for us to understand with armor, both the mechanics and also with the existing physics of vehicles in Hell Let Loose and their ability to traverse certain terrain in the game. We already have prototypes for being buttoned up or with open hatches, and want to explore smoke dispensers and as well as a flamethrower tank, and are absolutely interested in revisiting armor in Hell Let Loose. Well, the commander should be able to put his head out of the hatch and just look around with his binoculars, and certain tanks like the Panther Tank have a closed defense system, which is basically a grenade launcher in the turret. That should be in the game. Also, the Panther had pistol ports in the turret. It should all be in the game, right? These tanks historically had these things, so put them in the game. We want to go deeper with tank mechanics and get to the point where we can introduce an American tank destroyer like a Jackson or a Hellcat and have the make a lot of sense in terms of mechanics, giving players more opportunities to adjust their playstyle and tactics within a game. Yeah, and the Jackson and the Hellcat are not that great of examples, right? Because basically they're normal tanks with turning turrets, right? The tank destroyers become very interesting when it's just a fixed battle. You can just slightly turn left and slightly turn right and up and down, and the whole tank needs to move in order to aim. Then the gunner and the driver need to be on point with each other, because the driver is basically the aimer and the gunner just presses the button. Or it should just be a 2-person tank, right? The driver is also the gunner and the commander. That's it. But this will be very interesting to see in the future. And the console server browsing and map voting, while not shying away from the workload required to bring a form of server browsing to the console, there is a lot to consider, and there's an architecture problem and all that stuff. But yeah, that would be a nice thing to have. Another solution we're looking at in the interim is voting for the next map, which would definitely help communities better organize competitive games, as well as give them the freedom to vote on what they want to play versus what the server rotation dictates. Yeah, voting on maps is... I've seen a few servers do that and then they stop doing it because people are just gonna vote for one or two kinds of maps they just want to play. What is next for Hell Let Loose? Our current focus remains on bug fixing and optimization. With the upcoming patch 14.3 with a new roadmap in the works, there will be more content coming. The content will be PTE'd, it will be tested forehand, and we'll make sure that everybody is understanding of what's coming, what we've tried to do and where it is, and some of that it's not going to be like next year, middle of next year sort of thing. We are looking at what we can bring to the community that's new content while we're still making sure we do these major fixes first. And I'm senior brand manager, hire more people. There you go. Who's gonna wait a year or 2 years for you guys to catch up on your workload? Hire more people, Adam, senior brand manager. What new content is being worked on right now? British forces rework, weapons, armor and uniforms. 50 versus 50 combined arms maps including Martin. Revising dive to prone and taking on board feedback from the community. There is content we would love to consider working on in the future, including the Pacific. However, we want to ensure we're taking a measured approach to new content. A lot has been learned from the delivery of the British forces. Yeah, you try to deliver a subpar thing, right? A subpar product, and you thought you could do that. That's why you thought you could do the British and the Finnish in the same year, or the Polish and the Finnish all in the same year. Yeah, you can do that if you deliver subpar products, but now you've learned there's gonna be a lot of kickback, a lot of flack from the community. They're not gonna stand for it. So yeah, a lot has been learned from the delivery of the British forces. Well, I hope so, and we need to make sure the forces we deliver are accurate, what you as players expect, and also help inform and be respectful of various history and forces within World War II. And that is about it. Well, that was a lot, wasn't it? That was a lot to go through too, and yeah, they got a lot on their plate. And again, I hope they hire some extra people, because I'm pretty sure no one's gonna wait a year or 2 years for you to add more content or add more factions to the game. We're not gonna wait 2 years for you to add the Pacific and the Japanese, for example. We want that next year. And when I say we, I mean I. Let me know in the comment section how you feel about it. Make sure to leave me a like, and I will see you all next time.